Hello, YouTube. It's been a while since I've been on. I've been waiting to get the Amazing Atheist book in the mail, and it took a little bit of time. I'm reading it now, and I'll be back on next week with my review. I'm going to do a shorter version of my review for YouTube, and then I'm going to do a longer written version for my regular blog at buzzmonkey.net. But the thing I wanted to talk about today was the school shooting in Finland. Clearly a tragedy, but I think we should frame the context of the discussion. And there are certain things that I'm glad that aren't being talked about, except for the tags and response videos. I'm not seeing anyone talk, about social Darwinism. And that's good, because fascism by any other name is still fascism. You can go fascism science, it's still the same fucking thing. And whether it's, fascism masking itself as science, or fascism masking itself as democracy, or fascism, in the name of, oil companies, it's still fascism, and it still is wrong. And it's not wrong because God says it's wrong. To my knowledge, God has never really talked to me, so hence why I'm not particularly sure he's up there, she's up there, it's up there, the big moggly goggly gook is up there. I've heard no edicts from heaven, and I've read the Bible, and there's still nothing about fascism, but there is, about violence. And even if, the Bible says violence is wrong, that's not a reason to say violence is wrong. Violence is wrong because it's counterproductive, and because all it breeds is more violence. And if history, current, past history, has taught us anything, is that violence is counterproductive. Now, I understand that, Sturmgeist89, the Finland shooter, has been on YouTube for a long time, and his conversations with other people predate my appearance here. I wasn't able to see any of his stuff because it was pulled, and but not that particularly matters. Even if we knew in an instant what his motivations were, what his if we read a manifesto, it's like, oh, I understand. That's still not going to give us any answers that are going to adequately satisfy anything. It's not going to make anybody feel better. It's not going to do anything. And ultimately, intentions don't matter. We talk about, well, I intended to be, I intend to do a lot of things, but ultimately, it's actions that matter. Intentions are for shit. And it doesn't matter. I intend to teach my students whenever I walk into class. However, the action is not always there. For a variety of reasons. In order to teach, you have to have everybody, there mentally, and it's just not always the case. Intentions don't mean anything. So wondering about what this kid's intentions were doesn't matter. Because I think maybe if we knew his intentions, that somehow we could, start to label him as something. And I'm sure there are probably some people in the world that are going to label him as a hero, and some people want to call him a monster. I think calling him a hero is absurd and obscene, and calling him a monster is giving him too much credit. There are real monsters in the world, kids. Real monsters. And this kid was just fucked. He was fucked in the head. And because nobody that's not fucked in the head thinks that taking a gun to school and killing people is going to do anything. That's not how martyrs are made, and I'm not even sure that we should be concerning ourselves with, being martyrs. It's a bullshit romantic idea that for some reason we think that if someone dies that somehow will call attention to something. It calls attention to the fact that this kid's fucked up. And people are going to blame the schools, or going to blame his parents, and we're going to point fingers. And the fact of the matter is, we are never going to fucking know, even if we knew everything. If we had access to everything, it would not satisfy anything. It wouldn't take us any closer to figuring out why these things happen, and changing the conditions so that these things don't happen the way they happen. The fact of the matter is that violence in any form is unjustified. It's unjustified because it's counterproductive, and violence just breeds more violence. And if current history has taught us anything, it is that fact, that violence breeds more violence. And it doesn't matter why. I feel justified. I feel justified to do a lot of things. I harbor a lot of resentments and a lot of grudges, but I don't go around and fucking shoot people I don't, kick people in the nuts every time they piss me off. I think about it, but I don't do it because I understand that it's counterproductive. And I think maybe the thing that we have to understand in order to deal with these tragedies culturally is to understand that we're not any better than that fucked up kid. We all have a capacity for violence. We all can be very dangerous people. And until we understand that, we're not going to change anything. It doesn't do any good to isolate him, these exceptional cases, these rare fucked up kids, these people that do these horrible acts. We are the people that do these horrible acts. And even if we're not physically doing these horrible acts ourselves, and we're not out pulling the trigger, we, co-opt ourselves and we allow these things to happen. So we are as guilty as anybody else. And to put ourselves up on a high moral ground is counterproductive, and it's stupid. And until we understand our own capacities for violence, nothing is going to change. There aren't enough laws. You can't take away people's guns. You can't, metal detectors in schools, cameras. None of it works and none of it matters because people are going to do this shit if they want to do it bad enough, they're going to do it. So I think instead of isolating people like that or by dissecting them, as if dissecting someone's psyche would ever give us a satisfying answer. Instead of doing that, let's just recognize that we have the capacity to do this, and the fact that we don't doesn't make us better. It just means that that we're not doing it, or if we aren't doing it actively, we are, at least in the United States, we are allowing it to be done in our name every day. So that's all I got to say about it. It's a horrible thing, and I hope that the families are going to be okay. If something like that happened to my daughter, it would crush me. She's 13, and if something happened to her, it would destroy me. So I can't imagine how those parents feel. I can't imagine how the people feel who are directly affected by this. But I hope that instead of worrying about dissecting this kid's psyche and his manifesto and his intentions, that we can understand that it's not that we're better. It's just that the conditions haven't, been presented to us that have brought that out in us. So that's all I got to say. I'll be back on next week with my review. I'm really looking forward to that. I love reviewing interesting books. And it is an interesting book in many, many ways. So I'll talk to you all again next week, the whole two of you that listen. And I'll see you then. Later.